Hello and welcome into Week 6 of the Bobcast presented by Frostburg State's Office of Athletic Communications. I'm Andy Stanko, and today I'm chatting with all 6 fall season head coaches as we traverse deeper into conference play. I'm here with men's soccer head coach Keith Burns, and coach this week, 2 top teams in the conference. Mary Washington and CNU were the opponents, both on the road, 1-0 loss and 2-0 losses. You know, they're both unbeaten in the conference, and in both of those games, you guys were tied at the half, 0-0. How close are you to being where you need to be? You played some of the top competition the conference has to offer. What are your takeaways from those games?
Well, we still can't score goals, so that goes back to the beginning of the season. We're not going to beat anybody until we can find the back of the net. So, there are no moral victories of playing close games against good teams. We still lost. And that's just something we got to keep striving for. We got to just keep trying to get better day by day until eventually we're scoring goals and in the playoffs or the season's over.
And you look at the teams that you've played and lost against, those 3 teams, St. Mary's, Mary Washington, CNU, they're all 4-0. They're beating everyone else as well. So your team still holds its destiny in its own hands with a bunch of these teams that are also 1-3, 2-2 moving forward. How do you impart the importance of some of these conference games going up to your team? How do you let them know, hey, we're still very much in this getting to the playoffs? How do you emphasize that to your team?
Oh, they already know that. We don't really have to talk too much about it. They know what it's going to take to get in, being in the top 6, and they know there's 3 teams kind of already ahead of them, and everything else is up for grabs. The only kind of positive from the weekend was they just kind of proved to themselves that if they get in, they've got a chance. Because we are good enough to compete. I don't know if we're better, but we can compete when we're playing at the top of our game. We just haven't been able to do that very consistently. So they know that pretty much every game from here on out is almost like a playoff game. If we lose 1 or 2 more, then the odds are definitely against us of not getting in.
Yeah, last year 4 wins were enough to get in for you guys. Right now, sitting at 1-3, 5 games to go. Every couple of weeks when we chat, I ask you about the mix of guys and if you found that right formula yet. How is that process going along? Have you found consistency with any real grouping, or what areas are really nailed down on your team that you can point to and say this is a strength of our team at this point in the season?
It's tough to say. I mean, we're probably had the most consistent lineup in the back line, but then again, we're giving up goals, so I don't know if I want to call that a strength. Mm-hmm. And obviously the offense isn't scoring, so that's not a strength. So we're still kind of rotating all over, probably not as much as in the back. Mm-hmm. The 2 center backs and one of the outside backs have probably been kind of locked down, and now Sean Lewis has stepped up as one of the other outside backs, and that's probably been our most consistent back line. Hopefully they can become a strength, maybe against some of these other teams, but we're not shutting anybody out either, so it's everything's a work in progress, I guess.
Well, speaking to that, we saw both Juan and Jackson in net last week. What goes into making your decision any given day on who we're going to see back there for the Bobcats?
It's a little bit how they perform during the week, and it's a little bit situational on the team we're playing. Jackson's strength is flighted balls and dealing with bodies in the box, and we thought Mary Wash, that's kind of the way they were going to play, and it turned out to be true. He handled a lot of flighted balls and services that he came out and caught or deflected away. And Newport was just more about just typical goalkeeping, not anything specific, just having to be on your toes and play well. And I thought he did. I mean, the 2 goals, there wasn't a whole lot he could do about. We've got 2 legitimate keepers that we can kind of rotate based on game-to-game situations.
Talking to men's soccer coach Keith Burns, you mentioned it, and it's going to keep coming up again and again. Goal scoring for your team. The way that your team's configured, looking for ways to make that work on the front line, what ways or situations are you looking for your team to find those scoring opportunities? What would you say is the best way your team has been able to get opportunities, and what are you looking for moving forward?
Probably the best way right now, unfortunately, has been set pieces, because we're just not doing enough through the run of play. So whether it's long throw-ins or corners or bottom line is you got to get the ball in the box. That's when goals get scored. So whether it's a service, long diagonal ball, make the other team defend, and maybe there's a mistake made. But yeah, if we keep giving it away in the midfield, then we don't even give ourselves that opportunity.
Finally, this week, York, Marymount. Tied York last season, lost to Marymount. Those are two teams right there. York's 2-2, Marymount's 1-3, right for you. What are those matchups like for your team, and how important is getting at least a win this week?
Well, like I said, I mean, we can't lose probably more than 2 more games, so they're vital. York is probably a similar record and a similar team with a ton of talent. Just played a good schedule, and we're expecting a really tough game, so we've got to be better than we were last week to beat them probably. And then Marymount is on the road, and like you said, last year we lost at home, so right now everyone's good enough to beat us. So we got to go game by game and just get better every day.
Well, you control your own destiny. Best of luck to you, Coach, moving forward. Thanks for joining us on the Bobcast.
All right, thank you.
Next on the Bobcast, we've got head football coach Delane Fitzgerald. Football still nationally ranked number 18 in the country, coming off a crazy 27-24 overtime loss against nationally ranked Wesley as well. And, Coach, before we really get into the game, is that fun for you, those 3 hours on Saturday where it's one of the biggest games and you're behind and you're coming back? Well, I don't really know you that well, Coach. Do you have fun? Are you stressed out? When it's a game like that, is that what you live for as a football coach?
No, I don't think any coach in any sport lives for the actual game part of it. If you live for the game part of it as an athletic coach, you're going to live your life in a pretty unhappy mode. Andy and the people out there should know Andy and Dan are both here today. So
yeah,
the taxpayers' money's getting put to good use. Both people are working today. Pretty excited about that.
We try.
Yeah, welcome to work this morning, men. Hey, but I'm back on your question. Athletic coaches, the reason that we coach is to help young people, and it's said so often it becomes a little bit of a cliche. You just asked me what my favorite part of coaching was. Mm-hmm. It's when you see the light bulb come on in a young man's eyes, and he has figured out, not only has he figured out college football, but he's figured out life and how to be successful in both.
Well, how about that? And Saturday, it was one of the best games in the country, and just a loaded week of D3 football. You guys, Wesley was the last team to beat you, a big, long winning streak that spanned over a calendar year. And looking at your numbers, over 500 yards of total offense, 38 minutes of possession. You ran 27 more plays. It seemed like the plan was to control the football. What was your game plan going into this game, and how did your team execute?
Yeah, and you asked like 13 questions in a row, and you've been around me long enough to know I'm not smart enough to answer but one question at a time.
Well, go ahead.
Slow down. The 13 wins in a row, and it's been 54, 55 weeks since we had lost a game. Those are very, very special things. It doesn't happen. Alabama doesn't go calendar years undefeated, and Clemson doesn't go calendar years undefeated. It's just really hard to do those. The New England Patriots don't go calendar years undefeated.
Nope.
Our coaching staff and the young men in our football program the last 2 years did that, and it's a special thing, and I'm never going to forget that, and I'm not going to let them forget it either. But now going into Saturday, our coaching staff had a great game plan. Our kids came out and played really, really hard and executed at times very, very well. We were ready to play. We were prepared for the weather. We were prepared for the atmosphere. We were prepared for Wesley. Just in the end of this, without getting into a whole bunch of details, we're a football family, and nobody's pointing fingers, and accountability falls on every single one of us. We didn't quite do enough to be successful in the end of the game. We didn't do quite enough to be successful at the beginning of the game. We just didn't do quite enough to be successful on Saturday.
And looking at the game with Wesley in the second half early on scored a couple of long touchdowns. The Wolverines were able to put together a couple of big splash plays. They had 3 completions of 42, 56, 67 yards. That's 60-70% of their passing yards. What made them successful against your defense in being able to get some of those chunk plays or explosive plays that we haven't seen too often against your team this year?
No, we haven't given up a lot of big play. We haven't given up a lot of big plays over the last 3 seasons. Wesley has good players and Wesley has good coaches, and Wesley practiced last week also. So they made 3 or 4 big plays during the game, and then we turned around and made 3 or 4 big plays. You know, we had a 79-yard run from scrimmage from the 1-yard line. We had big plays. Connor had 2 big passing plays for touchdowns, one to Christian DePaul and one to Joe Beckford. But we told the young men all week, and same thing we tell them. You know, the team we play against, they practice 5 times that week too, just like we practice 5 times. They're going to make a couple plays. When they make a couple plays, we're going to turn around and make a couple more.
Coach, when I've talked to football coaches, I've heard the term sudden change come up time and time again in terms of turnovers, big plays. And it's not just that they happen, but how their team reacts to sudden changes and how complementary football comes into play and picking up a unit that's given up a big play or a turnover. How do you feel that your team responded to sudden changes on Saturday against Wesley?
Yeah, we practice sudden change. So during the week, once or twice during the week, our coaching staff will yell out sudden change, and then we put our young men in a situation that we have no idea if the situation is going to pop up that Saturday or not, but we put them in situations during the course of a month. We've put them in just about every situation you can put a football team in, so when it does pop up in the game, our guys are ready. But we'll holler sudden change in practice and tell our defense you're up 4, tell our offense you're down 4, there's a minute 45 on the clock, and you've got 1 timeout. Let's drive the field and see if we can either win or the defense stops them and we win on that side. Now, I'm getting ready to call it a quandary, and I don't know if that's the right word for it. The dilemma that sudden change puts the head coach in practice is I'm going to be 50% successful and 50% unsuccessful no matter what happens, because it's our offense versus our defense. But, yes, we practice sudden change. A big part of success in college football is being able to handle a turnover on either side. If our defense forces a turnover, our offense running onto the field excited and executing the net drive to get a score. And I haven't looked at the stats, not a stat guy, but I'll guarantee you that we have more points off turnovers this fall than our opponents do, because after our defense causes a turnover, we execute on offense. The same is the other way. If our offense happens to turn the football over, if we're unfortunate enough that happens, our defense has to come onto the field with a positive outlook and a positive attitude and get a stop.
Yes, and that game just screamed to me sudden change and seeing all the twists and turns. Talking to head coach Delane Fitzgerald of the football team, Frostburg and Wesley, 2 of the better teams you'll see in the NJAC. Talent-wise, how did these 2 teams stack up? I know Wesley had played 3 straight winless teams. Frostburg had been tested by Christopher Newport on the road, Rowan on the road. But was this the most evenly matched you've seen both teams this season?
Wesley College and Frostburg State College, both of the football teams are top 10 football teams. I hadn't looked at the rankings. Don't know where Wesley's ranked. Didn't know we were 18th until you just said it. We're both top 10 football teams. If you put us 2 in a tournament with the other top 8 teams, we're going to match up well with everyone in the country. We've got good offensive football players, good defensive football players, and we've got kids that play really, really well on special teams. Was it an evenly matched game? Yeah, we're tied going into overtime. It must have been. I think we're better than Wesley. I just don't think we did enough, to get that done on Saturday.
Saturday was a big...
I'm the head football coach of Frostburg, and this is what I thought when the buzzer went off on Saturday, and what I thought first thing when I woke up on Sunday morning before I was able to put it away through watching film yesterday. The attitude that I have and the attitude that our players have is that we're going to play well down the stretch and hopefully get another shot at them.
Absolutely, and still plenty of football to be played. Finally, I want to ask you, guys who rose to the occasion, Gavin Levatt, a huge run after that sudden change. Joe Beckford led the way, 9 catches, 81 yards defensively. Dante Chinnery, your defensive player of the week. What can you say about the guys who rose to the occasion on Saturday for your team?
Gavin came out and played well on Saturday. Gavin plays well in big games, seems to be more focused during the week going into a big game, plays harder against the big teams. We like that. Gavin's got to learn to finish football games. He's got to be more mentally and physically tougher than he's been this fall, but he's got to learn to finish some things. Dante Chenery. Dante has been a warrior for us for 4 years. Nice young man. Mama did a nice job raising Dante. Dante comes out and practices hard and plays hard for us week in and week out, and he's deserving of that award. He won this week. And Dante will come out next Saturday and play just as hard as he did last Saturday. Who was the other one?
Joe Beckford.
Yeah, Joe Beckford. I have the coach's curse now. I have 3 daughters, but if I had a son, I would want him to be exactly like Joe Beckford is. Show up every day with a blue collar mentality. Don't say a whole lot and work your rear end off, and that's what Joe Beckford does. Joe Beckford's one of the cornerstones, and there's 20 of them. Okay, but Joe Beckford's one of the cornerstones with which this program's been built on the last 4 years. All he does is show up every single day of the week and work hard and gotten better. And Joe does exactly what we asked him to do on offense. He blocks when he's supposed to block. He catches the ball when he's supposed to catch the ball, and then he turns around. He plays more plays on special teams than anybody on our team.
Finally, approach to the rest of the season. 5 weeks to go.
Our approach is to be successful this Saturday. William Patterson thought enough of us to make us the homecoming queen this week. So we're going up for William Patterson's homecoming, and that's always fun. But we're going to bounce back this week, and we're going to bounce back in a big way. And the kids, and I call them kids. I got to start calling them young men. That's the right term. The young men and the coaching staff, we talked on Saturday after the game. We talked again yesterday, and we're on the same page. We're going to try to win a game a week for the next 5 weeks and just see where the cards fall.
Best of luck. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you for having me, Andy.
Next in the Bobcast, we've got men's and women's cross-country coach Dale Louie. Men's and women's cross-country traveled to the DeSales Invitational this past weekend. The men finished 12th place. The women finished 18th overall. Robbie Romano leading the way from the men. Lauren Halverson leading the way for the women. And Coach, going into DeSales, it's a course you guys ran last year. It was the regional course, I believe, last year as well. Relatively familiar with it. What were your expectations for your runners, and how did they perform?
Well, we've, as we've talked some of the prior weeks, we're in a tough stretch here. A couple meets in a row, and more of the challenges at a couple of tough courses in a row, and DeSales, fits right into that. So. We had an okay week, not a great week. I think some of the courses have catching up to us a little bit, but that's okay. I mean, it's all part of the training process, and hopefully it pays off later on down the road.
What makes this particular course so difficult at DeSales?
Well, it's what I like to call a true cross-country course in the sense that it's up and down and through fields, and this is the place of Eric Beloga's infamous "Deer Hits the Runner" video, and the corn was high this year out there, so it's a challenge. It's not an easy course, but again, I think it's one of the types of courses that can help prepare your runners for later in Saturday. Additional element at work there was the heat. It was a little bit warmer than you would typically see at that point in October, especially running before noon.
Oh, absolutely. And also, I'm interested to hear this. I think it's the biggest meet we've had so far this season in terms of number of teams and runners overall, and a variety of competition, D3, some D2 schools as well that end up, being the top teams or winning the event itself. How are these bigger meets kind of different with the large volume of runners just navigating the course, or even, who are you competing against with all the different competition?
Yeah, it was, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the biggest meet we've had so far in terms of numbers, probably the most competitive there. There were three schools that have received national votes in the rankings or have been in the rankings at some point during the year, and a number of teams that are regionally ranked, both D2 and D3. So it makes it a tough race, but again, it's what you need to get better, and the intensity just cranks up a little bit. Right from the time the gun goes off, you've got some people that are going to take it out, which you always have in most meets. The difference here is that intensity is carried through for deep into the race. And again, that's something that in some of your smaller meets, you're not quite used to. On the real plus side is with those large number of runners, it's extremely difficult to find yourself running all by yourself. So there's people there to help challenge you, pull you along. The mental toughness side of it gets a workout.
When you put together your schedule for each season, do you look to have at least one really big meet? Do your runners prefer smaller meets, bigger meets? So what goes into that process?
Well, that's a good question. The biggest thing when we look at our schedule is where is the conference championship going to be, and where is the Mid-East Regional, NCAA Mid-East Regional going to be? And so we'll tailor our meet schedule to that to some extent. This year is a little bit of a challenge. These meets are going to get us ready for the NCAA Mid-East Regional. We're literally just going to have to get on the track to get ready for the CAC down
at CNU.
At CNU, which is flat as a board and multiple loops and things, and unless we travel far distances, we just don't have that ability to run turf track, which is what some of those courses are like. So we're really our schedule this year is more geared towards the Mid-East Regional than the CAC meet. Not that we don't want to do well at CACs, we do, but given our location and our training and everything, we are ready more for a cross-country course rather than
the preparation is lends itself
right
more to those championships. Oh, you mentioned this before. We're in a stretch where it's week after week after week of meets, and then that off week before the championships. Where is your team in terms of health-wise, in terms of the arc of the runners getting to their best times this time of year? Where are we today?
Well, on the women's side, we're a little beat up. That one of the reasons our performance was what it was there Saturday. We had 2 out of our top 7 not running. We have some women coming back from some injuries. Sarah McCurry has been dealing with some health issues and things and illness, and a couple people. It's that time of year, the flu starts kicking in, et cetera. So it's nice to see her. She seems to be, coming on back. Lauren Halverson has been continuing to soldier on through some leg tightness and whatnot, and she obviously was our first finisher this week. So our women really need to get that together, and on the men's side, knock on wood, we're doing pretty decently with injuries. More than anything, I think we're just showing that middle of the year training's going hard. Ramping that up, the meets intensities ramping up, and you start to drag a little bit, but that's part of the process again. You hope that down the road that pays off for you, and you never know until you get to the end of the road.
Yeah, and we're looking at this coming Saturday. It's Hood College. What are you looking for? What kind of course is it? And what are your expectations with it being another week consecutively with a meet? For your team, what's the preparation like, the course, and your expectations?
Well, the course should be the easiest we've had in the last several weeks. So, I know the runners are looking forward to that a little bit. A number of them have raced there before, so they're familiar with the course. They certainly know it's potentially a faster course than what we've been on the last couple of weeks. Competition is good enough to push people, push everybody on our team. So we're hoping that this coming week is a good week time-wise. And again, if weather cooperates, it's one of those places where the athletes do have a chance to compare prior performances at that site with what they do this year. And that's always a difficult thing in cross country because, it's not like you're on a track and it's 400 meters and it's 400 meters, et cetera. So, we're looking forward to Hood, and, then we've got a chance to really tune up and get our act together for the conference championship.
And we're just cruising right through this cross-country season.
Yeah, it's going to be quick. Although for those who make our top 7, they're going into that second week in November. So that's something that we also need to remain to be focused on, because that is a ways off, and with any sport, that long haul is a thing that mentally sometimes starts to work on people, and so you got to keep that positive attitude and keep pushing through.
Keep pushing through, and it continues this weekend. The Hood College Open. Dale Louie, thank you so much for joining us on the Bobcast.
Thank you very much. Have a good week.
Thanks. Head volleyball coach Becky Fletcher, volleyball through 4 games of its 6-game homestand, a win against Penn State Altoona last week, a 3-0 sweep, and another really competitive conference match. This one a loss to Southern Virginia 3-1. So volleyball 1-2 in the CAC, still very much in the playoff race. Coach, first we're going to go with Penn State Altoona. It was a 3-0 sweep, the second time you've beaten Altoona this season. Sabrina Roberts had a really nice day, 7 kills, her second most of the season. Your middles were good. What did you see out of them against Altoona?
We came out firing on all cylinders against Penn State Altoona. I think the strong thing for us all season, and we keep talking about it, has been our passing, and we passed phenomenally well. Lindsay definitely held her own in the beginning set there, and then the rest of our DSs picked it up, and that allowed us to get middles like Sabrina involved in the game really early, and they were extremely efficient in that game.
And that was the second time that you beat Penn State Altoona. But
Yeah.
I really want to get to the Southern Virginia match.
Okay.
Even though it was a loss, it was another really competitive match. Last week it was Salisbury that went all 5 sets. This week with Southern Virginia, they've got some really strong hitters, some of the best in the conference on the outside. What was your plan going in to mitigate those hitters, and how did your team execute in that plan?
We knew that we needed to stop their 3 big hitters. Their outsides are, you said it, they're probably
really
2 of the
good.
strongest in our conference. They are very good, and they hit pretty hard. I think you can see that from watching that match. Our objective was to kind of go in and try to stop their outside hitters and their right side hitter. I think that we did a really great job of defending their right side hitter and slowing her down. I think that we need to do a better job of stopping some outside hitters. I think they hit well. We actually slowed them down a little bit. They took a lot of swings, and they weren't extremely efficient, but they still got enough to squeak by and, come out with good results because of it.
And it seemed like you guys did such a good job blocking. A lot of what they were doing was trying to get it in the middle of the floor, maybe not hit it so hard.
That off blocker.
Yeah, what adjustment did they make, and how is that challenging for your defense?
So sometimes when hitters hit hard, your defense kind of sits back and waits for that ball to come hard to them instead of being able to rush forward towards the ball. And I think that we were sitting back waiting for that hard-driven hit a lot. So when they changed it up and tipped it to the middle of the court, we were kind of our weight backwards and waiting for the ball to come to us instead of ready to attack that ball, which is something that we struggled with earlier in the season, and I thought we had made some really great adjustments to it, but we kind of reverted back to our old ways there. Our off blockers, that's their job, so the person not blocking in the front row to pick that ball up, and they finally picked it up at the end of the match, but it was just a little bit too late.
Is that something that is specific to Southern Virginia that they adjusted to you, or do you expect to see some other teams throughout the season try that against your defense?
I absolutely expect some teams to try that. That ball in the middle of the court is a really tough one to pick up, and it's fast and it's quick, and if it's done well, then it keeps a lot of defense on their toes.
Yeah, and Southern Virginia, some big hitters did a nice job of bottling them up and then forcing them to adjust there. I want to touch on that second set. Went all the way up to 28 points. Southern Virginia ended up winning it. Yeah, your team had a couple of set point opportunities in that set. How big of a difference is it to be down 2-0 versus 1-1 going into that third set? It seems huge in terms of momentum.
Yeah, it is huge in terms of momentum. There's a little bit more pressure. There's a little bit more pressure on you to win. So if we didn't win that third set, we were done, and we weren't quite ready to be done for the night. So I think sometimes that pressure is a good thing. I think sometimes I wish we didn't have that pressure. I think every volleyball coach would love to win 25-5, 25-10, really
Yes.
boring, non-interesting games. I like it like that, but it's really not fun and not all that exciting and not that challenge.
Yeah.
Those games don't exist in this conference for sure.
And I think your team against Salisbury, and then in this match, it was a back against the wall situation against Salisbury in that fourth set.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Southern Virginia in the third set, where it was win to extend it. Your team came through.
Yeah, they did.
In the third set. What did you see out of them, and what does that say about the resiliency of your squad?
I think they're feisty.
Yes.
They definitely don't like to go down without a fight. They're scrappy at times. I think that sometimes we need to work on maybe being a little bit prettier in our game and not being so scrappy. We talk about that. So sometimes we need to work on doing the little things a little bit better so that we don't have to work so hard on other things. But I'm not unhappy with how they played. I think we played a really good team, and I don't think we lost to a bad team, and I don't think that's been the case for us all season. I think that we knew going into our conference play that it was going to be tough, and Southern Virginia is a good team, and they beat Salisbury, and Salisbury just beat Mary Wash. So there are some crazy things going on in our conference.
Absolutely. It's been really competitive. I want to touch on your middles here for just a moment.
Sure.
Ashante and Biamba, 20 kills on 42 attempts. Pretty good efficiency, really good efficiency out of your middles. What was working for them against Southern Virginia?
So our middles are fast and they're tall, so they have that advantage over some other middles. They also are really lucky in that the ball getting delivered to them is very consistent. So it's consistent from our passers, it's consistent from our setter. So they're getting a lot of the same things, and it's really easy to build that kind of chemistry with our setter. They do a really great job when they transition. Sometimes they're a little bit less efficient when they forget to transition and get off the net and make themselves available. But I think they've been really great for us so far this season, and I look for them to just turn it up a little bit more as we get going for the rest of our season.
Last question. I noticed this in the Southern Virginia match, or I've got two more. This is the last one about Southern Virginia.
Okay.
It seemed like good things happened when Maddie Torres was at the service line for you. Do you like to see her there? How much confidence do you have in, especially her, when it comes in a big spot to be that person to serve for you?
Maddie she's a senior, but she also has a rocket of a serve. Most of my girls in practice don't like passing it because it's tough. And so it's good to see her on your team. It's not fun to play against her in practice, but it's definitely one you're glad that she's on your team when you got her out there. She knows when she has to be a little bit more consistent. And so sometimes she knows that she has to take a little bit off it and let her team play some great defense behind her serve. And other times she knows she's kind of got the green light to go after it and serve tough.
And she was really good in that second set, late for Frostburg to take the lead. The third set to finally open up a lead that Frostburg eventually won. So Maddie Torres doing a great job. And finally, you look at the CACs, things are still pretty wide open for those playoff spots. You've got a couple teams at the top that are undefeated that have only played 2-3 games. So that's not really fleshed out. You got Penn State Harrisburg at home, York at home. What do those matchups look like? They're both teams that are sort of in the middle like you guys. What would wins mean against those teams, and what are those matchups like?
I think those are kind of must-wins for us. They're games that we've got to go out and go after, and there isn't any conference team we get to take lightly. Penn State Harrisburg has been doing a great job this season. They've definitely surprised a lot of people, and I keep telling my team that we're not going to be surprised by conference opponents. We've been watching a lot of game film. We keep it up before practices so that they know what's coming to them. York is always a great rival. I feel like we've got a good little healthy rivalry with York. I know that Nia Cheatham is from York, so I think that she always gets pumped and pretty hyped to play those guys. And I'm I'm pretty excited for this weekend. It's also our senior day. So we have 7 really awesome seniors that I'm so bummed to see leave, and hopefully this isn't their last match at home, and we can kind of bring them back in November.
Yeah, and nothing else going on here on campus. Friday, Saturday, come out to volleyball. Friday night, 5 o'clock. Saturday, 2 o'clock. We'll have it on the network. Be there on campus. Becky Fletcher, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Next on the Bobcast, we have field hockey head coach Caitlin Borman. Field hockey last week, an extremely competitive game against Washington and Jefferson at Bobcat Stadium. That won a tough 2-1 loss in overtime against a good W&J team from the Empire 8 Conference, and then a loss on Sunday to number 7 Salisbury. That won 7-0. Salisbury perennially a top 5, top 10 team in the country. So Caitlin Borman here with us. That W&J loss, it reminded me a lot of the Lynchburg game, where, Frostburg able to score first, be really competitive against a good program. It was Molly Pickard in the first half. What did you think of the first 35 minutes of that game where your team was able to build that 1-0 lead?
Our team did an excellent job of getting out there and getting up on the scoreboard first. We had made some tweaks on our attacking penalty corner unit, and Molly Pickard was able to finish on a penalty corner, so that was fantastic for her. So we were really proud of that, and then our defense was holding strong, which, again, was something else that we were proud of.
And tweaks in the penalty corner unit. Also, did you make any tweaks in the lineup? I saw some people moving around a little bit. What were those changes and why?
Yeah, we were trying some new things. Ashley Myers had been doing a fantastic job of facilitating our offense, so we tried to move her up a little bit and try to move Gabby Rahuba up higher so that way she could get some more opportunities. That seemed to work a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. And really, you look at the second half of the W&J game, you're playing with a lead, and it seemed like W&J did a really good job of controlling possession. What is it like to play that sort of defensive style in the second half, and it felt like a lot of their opportunities were coming off of penalty corners, and they kept racking those up? What were the challenges of playing with that 1-goal lead and when they seemed to be controlling the game?
Yeah, so our midfield we needed to do a little bit of a better job of trying to relieve our defense a little bit, because it was in our defensive end a very long time, and our defense did do a very good job of holding strong. Nicole Leety had a fantastic game against W&J, so they just kind of tired out. So we were kind of hoping our midfield and forwards would keep a little bit better possession up. But it didn't quite happen that way, and that's, I think, what happened. Our defense just got a little tired and gave up that goal at the very end.
Yeah, eventually W&J was able to find the back of the net. The game went to overtime, and field hockey overtime, 7-on-7. How does that change, the way the game is played for your team? How do you pick the players that will start? I saw quite a few subs in overtime, too. How does your philosophy kind of change in overtime? And another thing I noticed, Kira Morrell always stayed back for you guys in the 7-on-7. How does your team approach that overtime period?
Our overtime has a lot to do with fitness and moving the ball into space well. That's another reason why we have Kara back a little bit, because she does such a great job of intercepting the ball and stepping to any open passes. She does a great job of stepping into those passing lanes. That's why we were subbing as well, because overtime has a lot to do with fitness and who can, push it out the best.
And ultimately, the game ended with a penalty stroke. There had been a penalty stroke that was saved by Nicole Leety, and then ultimately W&J earned another penalty stroke to win the game. Overall, it hurts to lose in overtime, but it seems like another example, kind of like Lynchburg, of a game where your team can play with. W&J is a good field hockey team. They'd won 5 in a row. They're an Empire 8 team. They got to the championship game last year. Can you feel the confidence in your players starting to grow? Because from the outside looking in, we see flashes of this team playing with good teams. Is that confidence seeping into the team itself?
Yeah, I think we are starting to see that we're a good team, but we don't sometimes truly believe it a little bit. I think that when they look back on the film, they're like, oh, that was really good. So I think that they still, yes, the confidence is building, but they still aren't quite there yet. But I mean, our coaching staff tries to do a good job of really like letting them know you are doing a fantastic job. Like keep the hard work up. So yeah, that the confidence thing is really important for us moving forward.
Talking to Caitlin Borman of the Frostburg field hockey team. Your first trip to Salisbury as a head coach here at Frostburg. What makes Salisbury such a great program and a challenge to play against?
They just do the little things very well. Their receptions are great. Their fitness is fantastic. So playing against that team, especially with the amount of subs that we have, was a challenge for us. But maybe it doesn't reflect it on the stats, but we got our opportunities to knock a goal in. We've just got to, get to the spaces we need to get to in order to put the ball in the net, because we had our opportunities to score against them. So yeah.
Conference schedule doesn't get any easier. Christopher Newport's another top 10 team in the country. Seeing you actually beat Salisbury earlier this season. However, you do have a whole week off. No games during the week, which is very, very strange this time of year. What are you planning to do with this week and the game plan for seeing you on Sunday?
Yeah, so this week at practice, we're just going to really concentrate on finding a way to score and put the ball in the goal, and just do some more team bonding activities as well. That's, to me, is really important with how we play on the field, because if you love your teammates, you're going to want to do that extra little bit to help them out on the field. So we'll be doing those two things this week.
Well, field hockey, traveling to Newport News, Virginia, another long bus ride.
Yes.
Coming up next Sunday. Caitlin Borman, thank you for joining us on the Bobcast.
Thank you.
Back on the Bobcast with head women's soccer coach Brian Parker. Women's soccer 1-1 this past week, beating Mary Washington 1-0, losing to Christopher Newport 4-0. The Mary Washington win, Mackenzie Harwood, an awesome goal. And let's start right there, Coach. A corner kick, I believe it was Brooke Shahady on the corner, Mackenzie Harwood finding the back of the net. How did that come together? And really, for Harwood, she was able to earn the start. And what kind of contribution has she had to the team this year? Let's start with the goal.
Well, we were knocking on the door in a lot of ways, I think, and just certainly had other quality chances. I felt that it was the right result. I think we deserved a one-goal win. Mary Wash certainly had chances with the indirect kick at the end of the game. But it was, we were good that we didn't really, other than that, honestly, which was just kind of a technical error by our goalkeeper. Frankly, we didn't really give them very much. I think we had a good energy, a good rhythm to the game. Eventually, we got into that rhythm, I think, late in the game. And Mackenzie Harwood is, we've got jobs open. I mean, we've got opportunities to play on our team, and she's made took great advantage of the opportunity she got, and snapped a clean header in and got an opportunity to be the hero of the game and score her first collegiate goal. So certainly very happy for her. And, she's tall, she's long, she's got opportunities in matchups in that situation, and she took full advantage.
And Mary Washington, we talked a little bit during game day about this. It seems like every year, or these last 2 years, it's been very, very competitive in terms of the style of play that they play versus your style of play at 2 straight 1-0 games. How great was it to get a close conference win against a team like that?
Well, that's what it's all about. I mean, I think everyone kind of realizes, and I'm sure we'll discuss how CNU has kind of separated themselves a little bit. And so everyone else is fighting to get to that 2 seed, 3 seed, get a home game in the conference tournament. And so those are teams that we are primed to really scout and do well against. Mary Wash has always done kind of things a little differently in terms of their style of play and their tactics, and this game was no different, where they played the 2 high forwards. And fortunately, we were expecting that and did well in those matchups against some very good athletes. So I think it was a great test and a great result for us against those sort of middle-of-the-pack teams who are fighting for position.
Coach, you took the next question right out of my mouth. What makes Christopher Newport such a force to be reckoned with?
Good at every position. I mean, I always say in college sports, you're not going to ever have a great team until you have 2 good teams. So they've got a whole nother group of players that they can bring on, who are also good. So they substitute and they don't lose anything. They get a few injuries. They don't lose anything. I think the other big difference is, besides depth, is they've got some obviously very special players. Gabby Gillis is, probably going to track into a 3-time Conference Player of the Year, situation. She's only a junior now. So we had matchup problems in some areas of the field. Other areas of the field, we were fine. I think our wide defenders did very well against their pace. I don't think their pace was what killed us. I think the midfield quality is really what killed us, and the quality of their final passing and how they aggressively just come at you like a boxer. They're just jabbing away, and finally got some good chances.
When it comes time, say playoff time, conference semifinals, championships, what's the formula to beat a team like CNU with the depth and great players that they have?
Well, I'm taking suggestions. I'll give you my email if you'd like to write me. We're going to do things differently. I can tell you that. I think CNU, look, everybody knows when you get to a certain level, probably in any sport in college or even at the professional level, you're going to have to do some things to be defensively sound and kind of play for a result, so to speak, in terms of just kind of counterattacking and trying to basically shorten the game by just being a really good defensive game. A well-organized defensive team, and then kind of coming out and countering when you get chances. So, we decided to play them pretty straight up this time. There's no reason to play for the result, so to speak, and slow the game down at this stage in the season. But in the postseason, if we now know that our very specific objective is to get that rematch, right? Is to go down there.
Yep.
I can almost guarantee our conference champion is going to come through CNU and their field. So, to get that rematch with them down there. Be nice if it's in the final, if we could get a 2-3 game and get down there. But if it's in the semifinal, so be it. And we'll certainly make some adjustments.
Talking with Brian Parker here of the women's soccer team, it feels like women's soccer has been hit with the injuries at every level of the field. How has the depth of your team helped to mitigate some of those injuries, and how has the team's style of play evolved with some changes in personnel?
I think every team in the universe, is never going to field the exact personnel they'd like to game in and game out. And so I don't really like to talk a whole lot about the players who are not available to us. It's a devastating thing to suffer an injury for any player. Some are more serious than others. You're out of the loop. You're basically the reason that you exist as a competitive athlete is sort of taken from you. And so you've got to really manage that in a mature way. Listen to the advice you're getting from the athletic trainers and medical folks we have here who are awesome. And then just when you get your chance to come back, you got to make the best of it. And so obviously we're in that same situation. I think the team we put out there against Christopher Newport is a very good team. And I don't, we have some competition in areas of the field we didn't expect because of the domino effect of having injuries. But that's great. I think we played every available player who is a forward or mid in that game. We didn't defend, we didn't sub in the back at all. For obvious reasons. We're playing a fantastic team. But we gave lots of players a chance to get on the field, against CNU, which I think is bearing fruit. And obviously we need players to step up when they get their chance, regardless of the reason.
Last year was a 7-2 year in conference play, a 2 seed, a bye in the first round. How much of an emphasis is it to get to that bye or get a home game versus just getting into the playoffs? What is really the goal right now or the mindset for your team in conference play?
Well, the real simple math is, of course, every team you win is a team you can put behind you in the standings is a simple way to look at it. But now you start to kind of count points and look at it really carefully and realize that, if everyone assumingly is going to have trouble, getting points and results at CNU, then we've got to put York, we've got to put Mary Wash. Luckily we got that result. The game with Salisbury could end up being massive in terms of getting into a 2-3 seed, but you want to get that 2-3 spot, obviously, to earn a home game. I think that's the top priority.
Yes.
And then if you get the 2 seed in the 6-team format we have, you get a bye, and you get to watch someone else compete for a chance to play you, and you get the midweek bye the way our format is with the semifinal. So I think that would be awesome. To get 2-3 means you avoid CNU in the semi, and then you get the home game and maybe get a bye. So we want to fight for that 2-3 spot for sure. I do not think anyone mathematically is going to catch CNU just based on their form and the way they're looking right now. So, let's go. York is one of those games. So let's have at it.
Yeah, York and Marymount this week. York, Coach Sterner's been there, forever, over 20 years. What are they like? What's this matchup look like?
Always scrappy, always athletic, always highly motivated. they do some things in terms of their system that are a little unique at times that we need to be really prepared for. But I think we're going to have the ball plenty. I think that it's one of those games where the performance pressure, the emphasis is going to really be on us. If we play quick with the ball, we avoid their defenders, the high pressure that they'll put on us, and we can get the ball back and play a good defensive game, against their better players. I think we have a great chance. It's a good opportunity, but always a scrappy, tough, close game. That's what we certainly expect.
And Marymount on Saturday.
Marymount is surprising. They just got a pretty good overtime result against St. Mary's, I think, and they did not win the game, but they took St. Mary's to overtime. They can always make it tough to score. I mean, those are, I think the teams that have traditionally been fighting to just get into the conference tournament always are, it's like a conference final for them. If we can knock off one of these teams, we can get in, and we always expect them to be highly motivated. And Marymount with the drive and play down by the airport, it's a turf field. It's not uncomfortable to us, but it's a unique setting and something that you have to just be prepared for, and just in terms of your logistics with the travel and whatnot. So that'll be another fun game, but I certainly expect Marymount to be good.
It's a big week. York, Marymount. Coach Parker, thank you so much for joining us in the Bobcast.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks.